All right, I want to talk about user agents for a little while. There's a whole class of modules on CPAN called web services that are Perl interfaces to web services. All kinds of things from Twilio to the Ontario power generation site. Random, but why not? So most of these modules congregate, or at least they should, in the web service namespace. Some of them don't. But they really should. New modules should anyway, I think. These modules are useful because they do some of the hard or boring stuff like authentication and paging and stuff that you don't want to have to figure out in the API. But there's a problem with a lot of these modules, I think, and that is that they're tightly coupled to specific user agents. Just a quick survey of some of the modules on CPAN, you'll see that they have direct dependencies on things like LWP and HTTP Tiny. And I'm going to try to convince you that this is a problem, or at least that it could be better. So one of the problems that had to be solved is how do we configure the user agent? Most user agents come with sane defaults, but sometimes you need to configure as a user the proxying, caching, TLS verification, or timeouts, just various behavior. Some modules choose to expose those knobs or attributes kind of through their own interface, so you can set the timeout on the web service itself. But then every web service has to do that, and they'll probably do it slightly differently. And then someone realized, oh, dependency injection's a thing. I can just create the user agent outside of the web service module and pass it in. That way the user can configure the user agent however they want to, which is great. But the problem is, what if I want to use a user agent that the web service didn't want me to use, or they use something else? I think the user should be able to decide what user agent they want to use in all of the web service modules. For example, because it's really the application programmer themselves who know what their requirements are. If I'm writing a program that needs to have low resources, maybe I want to use HTTP Tiny versus something else. But if my web service is built around LWP or something bigger, then I can't really use it. The solution we've come up with is to just create a web service for all of the user agents. This is kind of wasted effort. I think there's a better way, and that is using adapters, as in the adapter pattern. It's kind of the same idea as our myriad any modules on CPAN. So it's a pattern, right? It's not my idea, but it's kind of cool. So I went to CPAN and actually saw that others had the same idea. HTTP any was a module that was already there. I think it's got some fatal flaws, though. No offense if this is your module. It provides a new interface. I don't think anyone wants to learn a new user agent interface. It doesn't support a whole lot of user agents at the moment, and it doesn't really provide a common interface, so it's not really usable as an adapter. So I wrote one. It's called HTTP any UA, the UA being user agent. It solves the problems that I had with the other module. It uses the HTTP Tiny interface, because a lot of people know that, and it's a good one. It supports currently quite a few back-end user agents that you can just plug in and they'll work. And then again, it provides a common interface that can be used as an adapter. If I was implementing a web service module, this is what it might look like. Through dependency injection, I still accept a user agent from the outside, and within my web service, I construct an NEUA module that wraps the UA. In the methods that actually do things, I just use the NEUA module as if it were HTTP Tiny, and the user of this web service would use it something like this. They construct whatever user agent they want, they pass it in, make method calls on it. The difference is I can use any user agent I want, which is awesome. Even this one, if I really wanted to. In my example account info, I'm just passing the raw response back through, but a real one would do something like decode the content and provide something useful. So this is what the pipeline looks like. The user uses the web service module. The web service module uses HTTP NEUA, and it does the transforming of the request and response to a real user agent. Right? It's just the adapter pattern. One cool thing I'll show you before I get kicked off the stage is that this pattern also allows something cool to happen, and that is this. which you may be familiar with if you've used PSGI, which allows you to write middleware components between the server handler and your application. But why not do the same thing in the client as well? So I've written some toy ones that did things like make sure that the request has a content length header and profile each request and stuff like that. I'm currently writing a caching component, because you can do stuff like even short circuit, like maybe my middleware doesn't even want to call the user agent if it has a cached version. It's taken me a while because I actually want mine to be RFC 723 compliant, but it's kind of cool. Once you write a middleware component, it'll work for any user agent, which is awesome. In conclusion, if you're writing a web service module or anything that needs a UA, consider using a wrapper like this so that it's useful for more people. Thanks.